Hi everybody, Kenny with UglyTent. Today on Basic Wilderness Survival, we're going to talk about sleep systems. Alright, so thanks for joining along on this episode. We're going to talk about sleep systems, the different types. This is not an end-all episode to sleep systems. We're just going to touch on them. We're not going to go too in-depth. This is Basic Wilderness Survival. So I just want to introduce you to some of the sleep systems, sleep ideas. Sleeping bags, quilts, poncho liners, that kind of thing. So you'll have an idea of what you're looking at. Whether you're going camping, car camping, needing it for a bug out bag, or just thinking survival long term. Real quick, let's break down sleeping bags. One thing to know is sleeping bags are rated, and they're rated for perfect conditions. That includes a ground barrier. What the manufacturers don't tell you is that most sleeping bags, I'm going to say 99% of them, are rated with a real nice ground pad underneath them, sleeping pad or inflatable pad, whatever, to create that barrier between you and the ground, which is very, very important. You want a barrier to keep the ground from sucking the warmth from your body. I've talked about this in other videos, and this is something that's talked about a lot in survival. You need a barrier between yourself and the ground, especially when it's cold or getting cold. Even in the summertime, I've had times where I wake up with a chill because the ground has sapped so much of my heat. It's easily done. And if you spend a lot of time in the woods, camping, car camping, tarp camping, whatever, you'll find that out. So the trash, if nothing else, a trash bag full of leaves. They call it a browse bag. That's an awesome tool to keep in your belt, knowing that you can take a trash bag, fill it full of leaves or straw or whatever you can find that's soft in the field to create that insulation between you and the ground is very, very helpful. So the next thing to know about a sleeping bag is that it has There's different styles. There's like a rectangle with a nice wide foot box, which a lot of people prefer. They prefer that wider place for their feet to roam around. There's a mummy style sleeping bag, which has a narrow foot box. And obviously the foot box is down towards the feet at the bottom. The mummy style foot box, the reason they do that is to conserve on weight and space. So a mummy style sleeping bag stuffs better, takes up less weight, less space than the rectangle traditional style sleeping bag. The different types of insulation. There's down, which is a natural material. Usually it's duck feathers, goose feathers, something along those lines. And there's synthetic down. The true down, the natural material, you don't want to get it wet. Once it gets wet, it compresses and loses its insulation. It's compacted down and it has no insulated properties anymore, very little. So your 20-degree sleeping bag now becomes a 45, 50-degree sleeping bag. And these are the common errors people make when they're camping, is they're like, that sleeping bag should have kept me warmer. Well, that's why it didn't. So synthetic down doesn't have the problems with the moisture or getting wet. If it gets wet, it will lose some properties, but not near as much as the natural down. Now, the natural down is usually more expensive, and synthetic is more common man pricing. Some of your sleeping bags will have a hood, something to cover your head, have a drawstring tied in. You can get as close as you want, have a little breathing hole. That's all you need if it's that cold, and I've done that. I've pulled that string so tight, the hood came around my face, and I just had enough room to breathe out of. Of course, that's back when I was doing the 0-degree campouts, and you can watch those old videos if you'd like. They're interesting. And I watch them now, and some of it's pretty funny, and obviously I've learned a lot since then, but that's part of this journey, is to learn. So hopefully that answers the quick question of sleeping bags. And when we talk about a foot box, when we talk about a mummy bag, when we talk about the insulation, you'll have an idea of what people, including myself, are referring to. So let's start off with the lightest weight I've got, which is the Cedar Summit Thermalite Reactor. Now, I've had this for 20 years. And basically, this has multi-purposes. This is a great piece of kit. So this can add about 20 degrees to your current sleeping system, your current sleeping bag, as a bag liner. Or it can be used independently as a sleeping bag. It's just basically a heavy-duty sheet. Doesn't have a zipper. And what these are designed for is you can use them in conjunction with your sleeping bag, or you can use it by itself. So in the summertime, early summer, late summer, when it's starting to cool down, So this one specifically is mummy shaped. You know, it has a smaller foot box on it, but you know, it's stretchy. This can also be used in hotels or hostels, you know, to keep you from getting bed critters, bed bugs or whatever. You know, if you sleep in this, you don't want to sleep on a nasty mattress or whatever if you don't trust it. And you can fully wrap up in this. You know, this even goes around your head. Has a hood, and it's got a drawstring in it. So here's your drawstring. You know, you can tighten it up. And you can get sleeping bags that are rated for 45 degrees, 40 degrees, 30 on down. The way I've got it set up is I'll use my blankets or quilts until it gets down to 20 degrees. Now this is a 20-degree sleeping bag by Kelty. This is a Kelty Cosmic 20. I believe they still make this. Very reasonably priced. You know, this is not a very expensive bag. I mean, it's still can get expensive. You know, you're talking $120, I think is what I paid for it. But for this type of bag, it's not bad, because some of these bags can run up to 400 bucks, American dollars. So this is a mummy style bag. Again, we're talking about the narrow foot box. It does have the hood so that you can tie it around you and draw it in and sleep as tight as you want. Just a little Cessna. Always loud though. One of the nice features about this one is it has an extra collar on it. So here's the end of the sleeping bag, and then it's got a little extra collar. And that's to go around your neck, keep you nice and warm when you dial this hood in, right? The other thing it has, where's it at? Yeah, this one tells you rated 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember, this is rated with the perfect conditions. And let's see, these tabs here are so that you can hang it up to dry it, or after you get done camping, you want to hang it up, let it dry out, get all that moisture out of the bag. It has a dual zipper, which means that you can give yourself ventilation if you want by opening it and still having the zipper up top closed. So that is for ventilation, and also if you wanted to be able to move your feet out of your sleeping bag. So let's say you hear something and you want to get out of your sleeping bag, you don't have time to crawl out, or the zipper's stuck up top. You unzip this, poke your feet out, now you can run with your sleeping bag. Does that make sense? So this right here tells you that it's down, Cosmic down 20. So that is this is a natural fiber sleeping bag, and as you can see, there's your proof. So I know this is a real down sleeping bag, so you don't want to get this wet. So if you're not used to camping with a down sleeping bag, it might take some practice, keep it from getting wet. So you may not want to get one, you may want to get synthetic. I like the down better than synthetic. I like the down better than the synthetic, because it's just a better quality bag in my opinion. So when you're at camp and it's really cold, use this as a layering system. You know, when you get out of bed in the morning, you can wrap this thing around you, and it has become your jacket, your heavy jacket. Once you get moving, you're going to warm up and you can shed it. Or if you get backpacking, wrap up everything and then get backpacking, then you can shed this. But it keeps you from having to carry another layer. But I use these quite a bit until I get warmed up. I'll wrap up in it, and you can unzip and wrap up in it. You can wear it, like I was talking about, unzipping the foot box and tie it up, and you can tie it up around you with paracord or whatever, and walk around camp. It's just an extra layer that you can add. Same thing if you're rescuing someone. Say someone in your party is injured, hurt, and you need to warm them up. This is a great idea. This is a great way to do that. Throw it around them, warm them up. They'll warm up real quick. Matter of fact, it's starting to get hot now. And this also can be used once you take Wilderness First Aid course. They show you how to use these for splinting and wrapping up parts of the body to help stabilize them. So the sleeping bag has a lot of purposes, a lot of uses. It's not just for sleeping. So get a good one. All right, next we go down to 0 degrees. This is my big boy. This is a 1 Tigress sleeping bag that's rated for down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a true down sleeping bag. So remember, when you're sleeping with this, it's very important that you don't get it wet. And this as well has the collar on it, so that you can wraps around your neck. It's even got one on the back side. So when you dial in this hood, it will enclose your neck. Or if you just want to use it without the hood, you can dial it in around your neck. Does that make sense? Now they incorporated this. This is an older sleeping bag. They incorporated a accessory pocket on this, which, I mean, I see the idea behind it. It's supposed to be before you put your cell phone in here, back when cell phones were flip phones, I guess, or keys or headlamp, whatever's important to you. I don't usually do that. I don't put stuff in my sleeping bag. And I have tried the hot water bottle trick. It's okay. It's a lot of extra work. The bottle leaks, you're screwed. I don't really see, if you got a good sleeping bag, the hot bottle in the sleeping bag, you don't need it, in my opinion. You can see I've used this over the years. It's got a little Gorilla Tape on it. So I was sleeping with this under a tarp, and the fire shot out an ember and melted it really quickly. But it repaired easy with Gorilla Tape. Now this is a same thing with the zipper, double zip. You know, you can unzip the bottom. Let's say that. You can unzip the bottom. Anytime you compress this down, literally, it will lose its insulated properties. So if you take a wool blanket and put it over top of your sleeping bag, you will freeze to death. Your 0 degree sleeping bag now went to a 50 degree sleeping bag. And if you're using a 0 degree sleeping bag, you're probably using it because you need it because it's really cold. And that's how I found out. I was literally camping in 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And I wanted to see, I threw a wool blanket over it for extra warmth. And I started freezing, I started shivering. I was like, what am I doing wrong? So it didn't take me long to figure out, okay, I'm losing my insulation by doing that. So I took the wool blanket off, put it in the inside of the bag, wrapped myself up on the inside of the bag, and then put the sleeping bag and zipped it back up over the wool blanket, and I was toasty. So there's your secret, there's your hack for how to camp with multiple pieces of kit and stay warm even when it's 0 degrees. And I did, I slept great that night. I've talked about how to take care of these bags in other videos. One thing you want to remember, if it comes with a stuff sack, that's what they want you to do. They don't want you to roll up a sleeping bag. They want you to stuff it in here. And what that does is that keeps changing the memory of the loft, of the insulation. So it doesn't get compressed the same way every time, doesn't get folds in it, doesn't get creases in it. By stuffing it in there, you're bunching out the insulation, which keeps its properties. Now, in different types of stuff bags. This stuff sack here is just your basic stuff sack. It's got the cord on it. Your better stuff sacks, and I'll start showing you this. Your better stuff sacks will have compression, will be compression sack. So if it comes with a stuff sack that's a compression sack, then you know it's a really good sleeping bag. This 1 Tigress 0 degree bag for me is probably one of my favorite bags I've ever had. And not just because 1 Tigress sponsored me with it. They were kind enough to send it to me to try out and to be sponsored with, but because I've tested it over the years and it has never let me down. Alright, once we get it in, push down on it. Get your drawstring cinched up. Put the compression cap over top. Now, we've taken that great big 0 degree sleeping bag and compressed it down to this, but it gets better. Let's tighten it up. Now we're talking. It's hard to believe that's a 0 degree sleeping bag. It's definitely not like your dad and grandpa used to carry. Good stuff. Okay, now that we've talked about sleeping bags, let's talk about blankets. Blankets and quilts fall, in my opinion, in the same category. Wool blankets are one of those bushcraft items that everybody talks about. This is a 100% wool blanket. This is a 70-30 blend. So this is 70% wool and I think it's 30% synthetic. It's not cotton, it's synthetic. You don't want to ever blend or use wool and cotton together. They don't like each other. They fight each other. Matter of fact, he talks about in the Bible. He talks about not using animal and plant material together because it doesn't work. I think it's Leviticus. But anyway, so this is my preferred wool blanket because in my area where it doesn't get very cold, you know, you're only getting down to maybe 20 degrees Fahrenheit is what we consider cold. And that doesn't happen very long. It may drop below that for a short period, but not long enough. The wool, 100% wool blanket is just too heavy, too much for me. Some people like the 100% wool blanket. I say go for it. If you're willing to carry that and you like using it, go for it. This 70-30 has been one of my best buddies. I've used this thing a lot. It brings back good memories. You can wrap it around you like a cloak to keep warm. Use it around the camp. Put a blanket pin on it. You can see those videos. I won't do this on this video, but you see how to take a wool blanket and make a cloak out of it. You can make a hammock. There's all kinds of things you can do with the wool blanket. They're fantastic. So this little 70-30, and it's lightweight. It's easy to roll up, easy to pack. It's one of my best buddies. So while we're talking about blankets, let's go on to the ever popular jungle blanket, or woobie. So this is my woobie. I've had this guy for decades, and it is military issued, military surplus. It's got all the tie points in it, and I'll show you what these are for here in a little bit. But this thing is just, it's wonderful. It's soft, it's synthetic, it's not real down, obviously. And this only gives you about, I'm going to say 15 to 20 degrees. So if you're camping and it's colder than 40 degrees, you're going to need more, in my opinion. I've pushed this to 40 and it worked in conjunction with the Bivvy sack or something else. But using this as your primary sleeping blanket, it makes sure that you're in the right comfort zone, the right temperatures. So we'll come back to that, and I'll show you how to put that into a poncho. That's what I call a poncho liner. Next, along with poncho liners, is the ever popular Snug Pack jungle blanket. Now, when I first started watching YouTube, first started this journey, which I love, this was probably the preferred sleep quilt or sleep blanket. And it is, tells you all the specs of it, weighs 25 ounces. I'm trying to see if it had a rating on it. It's a 6x6. Doesn't tell you the rating on it. But I'm guessing this is another pushing, if it's 40 degrees, can you see that? Here we go. If you're below 40 degrees, you're going to probably get cold in this, Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But anything above 40, I think this is manageable. Super lightweight, super compact, comes with a compression sack, so you can really dial it in, you know. But now let's compare the two. Let's go back. So this compares, this is a, say, 40-degree sleeping blanket. This is a 0-degree sleeping pad or sleeping bag. So let's look at the size difference. If you get a really good sleeping bag, there's not that big of a size or weight difference. So really, pack weight and pack size, you can really get some good gear for extreme cold. But just like the poncho liner, the jungle blanket, it's the same thing. It's just a blanket that you wrap up in. It doesn't have a foot box, doesn't zip up. Now they do make these that are like the Swagman roll. I believe One Tigers has one that's actually like a poncho, and it zips up into a sleeping bag. Those are pretty cool. I've done a video on one, very interesting piece of kit. I find myself using those a lot too, even when it's cold, because that makes a good addition to throwing this inside your down sleeping bag. So if I take this with my 0-degree sleeping bag, put these two together, I can go well below 0 degrees if I have to. And I have. I've touched below 0. Just barely, but camping out in negative numbers, negative Fahrenheit, it's an experience. So you need to try it. One of these days, push yourself out of that comfort zone, even if it's just car camping, and give it a try. Alright, so let's dig into the sleep system that is the personal sleeping bag. It's like a bodysuit. So this is a tank crew sleeping bag, military tank crew sleeping bag. I think it's German, I'm not sure. But it is, you know, it's pretty warm. I would say probably down to 40s. I don't know, I haven't looked up the specs on it. Probably mid-30s to 40-degree Fahrenheit. Obviously, you're going to increase the warmth by getting inside of a bivvy sack or something along those lines, or sleeping wrapped up in a tarp. But it's a nice little kit because it's got the sleeping bag bottom that ties up here, as you can see. And I'll demonstrate. So all you do, you know, you can tie it up when you're not using it, when you need to use it, time for bed. The foot box comes down, and you literally just step inside of it like this. Zip up. And now you've got your sleeping bag. Oh yeah, don't forget the hood. Put the hood over. Nice and cozy. It's got a really wide foot box too. It's wider than a mummy sack. However, it's still not, you know, you could take your boots off before you put in here. But it's a neat idea. And I'm sure that the tent crews really loved these things, because at a moment's notice, you get out of your sleeping bag, back up, jump in your tank, whatever you need to do. And I can find the strap there, strap here, pull it up, tie it. And there are civilian versions of this. It's not something I use a lot. Matter of fact, it's only been used once. But what a neat piece of kit to have. Let's talk about your sleeping pads. This is the most basic sleeping pads. This is a Z-Lite by Thermarest. This is a foam pad. You can find these in the roll kind, you know, the kind you roll up, or you can find them in kind that fold up. These are really nice because they can lay flat in your backpack, on the back side of your backpack, and you can be used as a frame sheet. So if you take your frame sheet out of your backpack, and we discussed frame sheets in the backpack video, you can replace it with this, or put it where the hydration pocket is, hydration bladder pocket, and it becomes your frame sheet, and doesn't take up much more room than your normal frame sheet. So that will help reduce weight, reduce space, and also it has multi-purpose because now this is your sleeping pad. Now the Z-Lite is also, it's obviously a 3/4 inch pad. When you sleep on this, it's only going to cover the important areas, you know, your head, your torso, your butt, your legs. The bottom of your legs, your calves, and your feet, you can supplement with your backpack. You know, take your backpack, lay it out, or something else to give yourself padding. But this covers basically the main areas, and that's all you need if you're doing a quick overnighter, survival scenario, bug out bag, whatever. These are great. And these are inexpensive. So sleeping pads have a reflective value, an R rating, just like the insulation in your house. This is I think this is about a 1, an R value of 1. Most foam pads are right around 1, 0.5 to 1. So it's very basic. It's not very thick, but it's just enough for emergency or for someone who's, you know, a child, or again, if you just need it for a bug out bag. As we get into the bigger sleep pads, this is a Thermarest Base Camp. This is great for car camping. This is great. Put on a cot, put inside a hammock if you want. You create a little extra rigidity and warmth. This pad here, I believe, and I'm gonna throw that. I think it's around a 2.5 to 3. I'll have to look at the specs on it. But anyway, it's inflatable, and it does more than the foam pad. This is probably my preferred pad. I love this thing because it's so spacious too. So most of your pads are about 20 inches wide. This one's closer to 30, and which gives you more space for your shoulders, and you're not rolling off of the pad during the night. So just like anything else, you can go deep as you want to in this sector of basic wilderness survival sleep systems. You can spend as much money as you like. You can get the Cat's Meow, which is actually a sleeping bag by North Face, and a good one. You can get whatever you want. I want to show you this one real quick. This is a very expensive, wife got this for me for Christmas, very expensive sleep pad. This is a Thermarest Neo Air, and I believe this has a R value of, I want to say 5. This is one of the best ones at the time that you could get on the market. And you can see how small it was, but how big it rolls out. And it covers my full body. I believe it's about 6 foot. It's not quite as wide. You know, this is not a 30-inch pad. This is about 20 to 2. This is about a 20-inch wide pad at the shoulders. But this thing is absolutely amazing for cold weather. Again, these are pads that I've used over the years. And I've tested them, tried them out. I know what works, what doesn't. I've used all 3 of these a lot. And you can watch my videos and see me using them, putting them to use. Alright, lastly, we're going to talk about Bivvy Sack. I've discussed this one before. This is the Escape Bivvy by SOL, Survive Outdoors Longer. And this is just an emergency bivvy. This is breathable and reflective. Make sure if you get a reflective bivvy or a reflective blanket that you actually crawl into, or a tube tent, whatever, make sure that it is breathable. Otherwise, the condensation that your body will create inside these negates the warmth. You'll be wet and cold instead of just cold. Make sure it's breathable. Now this is a military bivvy. I'll show this one to you. Now this you can use in conjunction with your other sleep systems. You know, the other sleeping bags. And basically a bivvy sack is just that. It's a sack that's waterproof. This is Gore-Tex. And it's designed for you to crawl in and keep you warm, keep you dry. Now this does add a layer of warmth. However, I would not say this adds a lot. There might be people who disagree with me, but until you've used this, and I have used this in extreme cold, and you know, you need a lot of extras with this. You can't just use this in a poncho on it. You'll need a lot more. But for fall camping, spring camping, this and a poncho liner or a nice quilt. Now they make backpacking quilts that are super expensive. They're lightweight and they compress small, but they're like 400 bucks, you know, so they're really pricey. But if you had a good quilt or blanket inside this on a cool fall evening, fall night, or spring night in my area, you'd be just fine, you know. And let me show you this one. I'll crawl in it to give you an idea of what it looks like. Again, I'd still recommend a good barrier between yourself and the ground, either inside the sleep system. So you put your sleeping pad inside this, and then your sleeping bag or yourself and then the blanket, or put the pad underneath the bivvy. So if you want a contained system, keep everything all together, take the bivvy stack, put your pad inside, put your sleeping bag inside, and you're all contained. Alright, so when you lay out your military bivvy, make sure you got the right side, correct side down. You'll find your tag, bivvy cover. Now you're going to crawl in, just like you do your sleeping bag. It's got a fairly wide foot box because they're thinking you're in the field, you're probably going to keep your boots on. So you got your pad, your sleeping bag. Let's lay down. Find the hood. Here it is. There we go. Oh, yeah. There's my hood. So now, I'm going to sleep dry, because this is Gore-Tex, waterproof, and breathable. Alright, lastly, as a bonus, I'm going to show you how to tie in a poncho liner to a poncho. Lay out your poncho. First thing you'll do, we lay out the poncho, and I didn't do, was tie your hood really good. Cinch it down. This may take some work. You're going to close that hole for obvious reasons. Okay, now lay out the poncho. The poncho, the military poncho, is such a versatile piece of kit. I've got leather pockets sewn in the corner of this one that you can make into an alpha tent. And if you haven't seen that video, go back and watch it. It's worth watching. So let's lay out our poncho liner to match it up. All these strings in the poncho liner match up to the grommet holes. So run them through, tie them off. So they're on the corners and they're on the middle as well. Alright, now we have them all tied together. You've got this creates a water resistant sleeping bag. So when I lay down in it, or on it, I go to cover up, the poncho goes with it. It gives me that protective layer against the elements. Now, I just have the blanket tied to the poncho, but if you wanted to tie the center together, or the foot box together, to make it more enclosed, obviously you can. I've never done that, but again, this is a lightweight sleep system, so if you're really worried about that little extra bit of warmth, you're probably using the wrong sleep blanket or sleep system. But it'll keep the dew off of you. It'll keep light rain off of you. you know, those cold mornings or cool mornings in the fall where you wake up and there's dew on the ground. You don't want it on yourself, so this is a great option. And also, if it's cold and rainy, when you get up in the morning, just wrap it around you, and now you've got a waterproof blanket. So now you've got a waterproof blanket that you can stay warm and dry in. So one more thing, after you're done camping and you've aired out your sleeping bag and it's dry again and you want to store it, make sure you store it in the appropriate sack. Some of your high-end sleeping bags will come with an extra sack, which is a bigger sack than the stuff sack, and it usually just has a drawstring on it or somewhere to hang it. You lightly stuff that in there. You don't compress it. You just lay it in that bag and hang it up, and that will keep it in good shape. Or you can hang it from a hanger so it doesn't damage the insulation. What I do, and this is on my man cave video, is I take my sleeping bags and I stuff them inside my bigger backpacks. So it contains them, but it gives them room to breathe and room for the insulation to expand and not be compressed down too much. Hope that helps. Almost forgot. Don't forget your pillow. So this is a Thermarest inflatable pillow that I've used over the years, and I would be lost, see that, without this thing. You can see it on all my videos, my newer videos. I've had different pillows over the years, but this is by far my favorite. This was given to me by a friend and subscribers, Bob and Berkeley. And now every time I use this pillow, I think of them. So don't forget your pillow, especially when you get my age. The pillow is important. So thanks for watching the video. Hopefully this was informative to you. Leave me a comment if it was. Leave something positive. Appreciate the positive comments. So the next video on basic wilderness survival, we'll be talking about tools. And that's a fun one because that includes knives and saws and axes and all that good stuff. So thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next one.